All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live.
Welcome to the City of Eureka Springs Planning Commission Workshop, Thursday, January the 22nd, and the subject tonight is sidewalks. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Paul and Cassie to discuss your report and any recommendations, suggestions you may have.
All right, so I'll start with a little bit of background. A few months ago, the issue of sidewalks was brought up at City Council regarding what can be done, what's the state of our sidewalks, et cetera. And so the mayor asked Paul and I to go out and make an assessment of the sidewalks in town. So we went out and we walked almost every sidewalk. The sidewalks we didn't walk, we drove slowly past and marked all of them with a rating of 1 to 5, 5 being great condition, 1 being terrible, 2 through 3 in between. And from that, we wrote up this report remarking, and that we presented to the mayor and to city council, remarking on where in town there are sidewalks, where in town there aren't, how many sidewalks we think are each of those ranks, 1 to 5, and some recommendations within current, that would work within our current code on how we can proceed with perhaps fixing some of those. That was all talked about at the last city council meeting. Towards the end of that discussion, city council requested that planning take a look at our current sidewalk ordinance to see if there is any room for improvement in the ordinance that could help the cause for better sidewalks. So Paul and I have looked at this, at our code. We've looked at it a lot. One thing that I know Paul has talked about and passed out a sheet for you all today is for places that require concrete, which are all places outside of the historic district. Paul is hoping to potentially redo some of those concrete specifications. So I'll let him explain more about his decisions there. Another couple of things that I have thought of are, do we want to start requiring sidewalks be placed in new subdivisions? Not that we get a ton of new subdivisions, but do we want to make that a requirement, whereas right now it's at the discretion of planning each time a subdivision is presented? I also was wondering if we want to make any adjustments to the written notice for repair section, if we think that it's good as is, or if we think any changes should be made. I am wary of changing any of the material specifications in the historic district without HDC's input.
So I called you, was it last week or whatever, to ask you about the applications for PUDs and subdivision. We had this discussion. I know Kyle was here when we had this discussion. I'm not sure if everybody here, I think most of us were here, but when we were updating our applications. So on the PUD, I know for sure, and I thought on subdivisions, we added a category on the application that was there so that we could check whether or not they were required to do sidewalks. And if I remember correctly, when Kyle was here, we went through I can remember being in his office and going through the code, and at that time we felt like sidewalks were required in PUDs and subdivisions, which is why, but there was nothing on our application to make sure that the individual who is applying would see that that was a requirement. I think that part of it's already been taken care of.
What's a PUD?
Huh?
What's a PUD?
Planned unit development.
Okay, that's the only thing I had a question about that, because the city council, I got the impression that they didn't know that we had it in the code that we don't have to put mandatory, sidewalks are not mandatory, and they said they wanted to revisit that. So that's the only thing I clarified. I think all new construction should be required to put a IDA compliant sidewalk on the property before approval. That's pretty simple.
And like I said, I can remember sitting with Kyle, and the way that the code reads, at least the code that he was reading, basically, I mean, everything's up for interpretation, right?
Well,
But-
it shouldn't be, though, if it's in the code.
Yeah, I mean, and I know we had that discussion at this table, which is the reason why those applications were updated, so.
You know, I feel that sidewalks should be taken on a case-by-case basis because in new development, because our terrain is all over the map. I mean, the elevations are different depending on where you are developing.
Are you talking about new subdivisions?
Yes.
Anything, you're saying anything should be like a tree cutting, everything should be individual.
You know, just example, on East Mountain, there's, when you're making the bend across from the overlook, the crescent, they're building houses there, but they're not building sidewalks.
Well, we would really be in a good spot if we were sitting here debating about what we should do for development of new subdivisions. And by the way, it's standard in many communities to require these sidewalks right in development of new subdivisions. And I'm hopeful we'll be able to review that, right? And we did, I think, I have a PUD at the Land of Nod, right? If I'm not mistaken, we required, there's subdivisions required there. I mean, not subdivisions, I'm sorry. Sidewalks required there. As a part of the PUD, but I'm more interested in what we've got now.
I agree.
Right, we've got a lot of
mean-
sidewalks right now, and I think we just need to have some clarity with property owners, as to what we do.
I have two things on that. First, back to what we were talking about first. I do believe it should be mandatory in the code that all new construction, residential or business, should have a sidewalk conforming to these requirements, but they can ask for a variance if he says like that. So, because to go there in front of every construction and debate whether, I just don't want to get caught up in that individual thing. There should be a uniform flat program in the code that says this is what you must do. If you would like to apply for a variance, then go for a variance in front of the Planning Commission. That just really gets it down to no deviations or interpretation if it's in the code. And another thing, and then on that's for the existing code for now. But as far as the sidewalks that are out there now that we're talking about, that's a different issue. Those are the ones that are already in the ground.
And that's
What do they
why
have
we're
to-
here today.
Okay, for that one right there, the only problem I have with that one, real quick, is right around the corner from my house, there's a sidewalk there, and my neighbor Susan has brought this to the attention, and her sidewalk is really deteriorated, but there is a monster tree that has grown up in her sidewalk. I know this person. They don't have a lot of money. They're not like a lot of the homeowners and business owners here. She's doing okay, but to remove that tree before she puts her sidewalk in, it's going to be $7,000 to remove that tree. And that is really a burden on some certain homeowners that don't have to deal with the same thing on the other sidewalks. It's just, there's certainly so many factors involved in replacing sidewalks that, we just can't tell everybody, you got a sidewalk over here, you need to fix it within a year, then 180 days. There needs to be a program for people that just cannot afford to pull out a $7,000 tree, then pour a $5,000 sidewalk in that same spot. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, Paul, you want to go ahead and give your
Oh,
presentation?
I'm sorry.
Well, you want Susan to answer?
Susan?
I just wanted to add a couple things. I know in the code it says it is recommended that there are sidewalks on both sides. If we're going to say, because I did listen to the city council meeting, if we're going to say that we really don't need sidewalks on the other side and we only need it on one side, then that part of the code should be cleared up. As far as going back to the tree issue, I had another thought on that too, because obviously we can prevent new trees being built within that space, but we can't do a whole lot about the ones that are already 40, 50 feet tall. I would like a clarification, or maybe we should add something that doesn't allow, because trees are always an issue. Whenever we talk about sidewalks, everybody talks about trees. We don't want to kill the trees, but we've got tree roots and we've got, sidewalks buckling because of it. Perfect example is down on Spring Street. Those trees are huge, they're old, they've been there forever. So in the code, if a code, or if this conversation is to update the code, is there a way for us, because we can't change what's already happened, but going forward, that trees aren't planted in that 10-foot area on a lot? Now, that might, on a new subdivision, then cause issues because the lot will become smaller. But that's what I'm just saying, because if somebody plants a tree, it looks great when it's, 5 foot tall and it's only maybe 6 inches around. But as it continues to grow, it's just going to be, it'll be constantly an issue with sidewalks if that side of the street has sidewalks. So that would be my only thing, would be to clarify whether or not that wording says that it's recommended there are sidewalks on both sides of the street, and we have something in there for a tree recommendation or a tree or tree guidance within that 10 feet of where a sidewalk is.
Yeah, the only thing of it is, I would say on that is that you really can't tell a person where to plant a tree or where they can't. You can recommend it, but not enforceable. Okay, so like Cassie said, we went and walked these sidewalks and tried to come up with a good solution, because we don't want to just go out and say, hey, you got 180 days or 90 days to fix these sidewalks. So we thought we'd bring it out slowly, and each sidewalk will have to be individually letter would have to be individually specificity on the sidewalk itself. The only thing that we was talking about changing, that I'd like to see change on the sidewalks, is in the code, under sidewalk codes, I think it just says that it's 3,500 pound concrete. And so the current code says it's 3,500 PSI, 5.5 sacks, with expansion joints and control joints every 5 feet, expansion joints every 25 feet, and then reinforcement to be fiber, half-inch rebar. So it doesn't give you a lot. What tells you the slump and tells you, curb ramps for disabled access shall be provided where a sidewalk crosses a curb. It doesn't really tell you several things that probably ought to be looked at. And one thing that I think that needs to be addressed is that all the concrete on city sidewalks, well, I say sidewalks that's going to be the homeowner's expense on their property or adjacent to their property, that those sidewalks probably need to come from a concrete mix truck, a ready-mix plant. And one way to ensure that is, because your bag concrete that a lot of people try to pour concrete with, it doesn't have any type of air entrainment in it, and air entrainment helps the durability of the concrete. And also, it gives a good mix whenever you have it from the dispatch plant, from a ready-mix plant. And these are reasons that would pretty much ensure that most of your sidewalks would come from a ready-mix plant. On our, and that would be adding some of these requirements that I gave you in my handout. On the sidewalks itself, like you have some subdivisions right now that you did not require any sidewalks to go in there. It's going to be kind of hard to say that those people don't have to have sidewalks that already have houses built, but the people who come in here have to put sidewalks in. I don't know how to address that. But I do think that I took Cassie to the Stone up there, Eureka Stone, and there is a place that we can probably maybe even have some type of class that shows people how to repair the stone sidewalks by grinding, and then it's called bushing. which would give a texture to some sidewalks that helps repair sidewalks, that they don't have to replace them.
Is that for the limestone?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, and then that's kind of pretty much it.
I have a question. So on the report that you all gave us, it talks about those sidewalks with a rank of 1 constitute approximately 6,400 square feet. Do we know an estimate individually what it would cost a homeowner to repair a sidewalk in front of their house?
No, the reason why why I kind of gave some cost there is because of the fact, I think I went from a range from, I don't know the exact range I went from,
You
but
did $8 to $15 a square foot.
yeah. So it's going to be somewhere in that neighborhood per square foot to replace the sidewalk.
And average homeowner sidewalk, I mean, is it the whole thing? Is it 10 feet?
So
I would say it really depends. There were definitely some properties where the entire sidewalk would likely need to be replaced. I'd say that's more likely with smaller lot sizes or in our commercial, like our C1 zone, where, the stretch of sidewalk they're responsible for might be 3 feet in front of their door. Some of the larger lots that have more street frontage, more sidewalk frontage, it might be half, might be a quarter of the sidewalk that needs replaced, but the rest is still in good shape.
I have a question too.
Okay.
Back to Paul's statement about what the changes he's made. I'm not a construction guy. I'm not your case. What ones under 9.08.060 A through H? Which ones of them do you want changed? Do you recommend being changed, and how do you want it worded? Like, okay, the Portland Cement 5.5 sacks over here. You got 6.6 sacks. What do you need? What do you recommend, given your expertise, that we need to change?
So if we can mix those together and put this pretty much, that replaces that whole paragraph, would
Okay.
probably be satisfactory.
Okay, that's what I wanted. I just wanted to know specifically
So
what
A
you
through
recommended.
H.
We just need to change, omit all that and put this in there. That's what you're recommending.
Well, I can find a way to combine what's already there with what Paul has recommended, so
Okay.
that the parts that need to be replaced are replaced, and then present that back to you all.
And then it would go on to the city council.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have one more question about that. On the construction of the new sidewalks, they have to be ADA compliant. So if you're on a corner lot, you have to have a ramp going down to the street. That is charged to the homeowner of the new construction, correct?
So I'm just going to tell you my opinion.
Okay,
My opinion is when it gets to that curb, it really isn't adjacent to your property.
okay.
I believe that that ramp probably is not going to be done, but I don't believe that should be to the homeowners.
Okay, good. I was just trying to get clarification because I read a bunch of the ADA stuff. And I know that the state law over.
And so where's the cutoff?
Well, I don't believe that that ramp should be that curb portion should be part of the homeowner's
Gotcha.
responsibility.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. So, yeah, if you're on a corner where somebody's coming across the street, it's not the owner's responsibility to put that ADA ramp on there.
Yeah.
So how would that be worded into the ordinance that the city will be responsible for that ramp?
I don't open a bag of tricks. I mean,
Is it-
Pandora's box here and something we won't ever apply for.
Is it more, if somebody were building a subdivision, those are all brand-new sidewalks, and typically that would be taken care of then. But because we're replacing or fixing existing, so maybe you word it that way so that it says existing sidewalks instead of
Yeah.
all.
That's what I mean, yeah. The new
know what
ones,
I
I'm saying, existing sidewalks, they shouldn't have to put a new
Right.
ADA ramp. But I mean, a new construction, that their sidewalk leads, to the street. I'm
And I
just trying
think
to
they just
clarify.
do
Well,
that as a standard anyway.
It's, to my understanding in federal law, that the ADA is that when you do renovations, you have to conform with the law. So if the sidewalk doesn't have a ramp in there now, but if you're redoing the sidewalk, you'd have to put in the ramp.
Well, that's what Mike is asking. Would they
Yeah.
be required to do that?
Against
Can we
the
get legal,
law.
can we get legal to interpret that, whether we have to?
I think we should, because ADA gets triggered in certain cases, but not all. And especially given the topography of our town, there's certain places where we're just not going to be ADA compliant, and that's no one's fault or no one not wanting that. It's simply impossible.
Well, I want to give an example. In California, people are going around and suing store owners and businesses because they weren't ADA compliant.
I think we are exempt from that because we are historic, are we not?
In a lot of places, that is true. I know the city, for the properties they own, went through a whole big making sure we're ADA compliant a number of years ago.
I thought there was a map that Kim worked on, wasn't there?
I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kim would be the one to ask about that.
So I'd like to see, we'll figure this out, but I would like to see some signage for people to say, this is an historic town, walk carefully. These original sidewalks, I think that we need to put some type of notice. I know that the homeowner is going to be responsible if somebody decides to sue them, but I think that placing, and they can be nice, cute signs that go with the historic town, I think that that is something that we should do. Have you talked to anybody, Paul, that needs their sidewalks replaced and gotten any feedback on it?
No, we're in the process of writing letters right now.
So do you think 180 days or 365 days is equivalent for them to take action to replace their sidewalk?
We believe by giving them 365 days would give them adequate time to replace their sidewalks.
And then if they don't, what happens?
Well, then what we're going to do is we'll set up a sidewalk safety team, and that would probably be Cassie, a person from Public Works, and myself, that will go through there, and then we'll give them, I think the required was 180 days.
Yeah, we'll follow the written notice of repair
Yeah.
after that,
Yeah.
which is 90 days.
Yeah, 90 days.
All right, I have one more question about that too, but go ahead. I think Susan.
Susan?
I just have a question about what you were talking about as far as the mix requirements on the concrete. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, are you saying that because I don't know anything about concrete, are you saying because of what you've put down here, mix type and compression strength and all of that, that can only be obtained by using a cement truck as opposed to someone doing bags, or is that not what this is saying?
If you have this mixed design, it can only be mixed with air entrainment and the water cement ratio by a cement truck.
Okay, so I think my concern there is that, we're going back to what Mike is saying about some of the locations and possible individuals. They would, so what you're saying is in order to get that mix, they'd have to hire a cement truck in order to do it?
If you want to get this type of mix, yes.
Okay. I understand that on a brand new sidewalk, but if you're only repairing, say, 5 foot, 10 foot, would that be required?
Well, it would be required. Hopefully, and I understand what you're saying is the cost
It's
factor
going
up there.
to create a huge
Yeah.
bump in the cost.
Yeah. The question is really whenever you're talking about a sidewalk that's going to be holding up, you really need to have this type of mix in there.
Well, if it's up to the homeowner, if the sidewalk is put down, if you're saying if they mix it with a cement truck or mix to these specifications, then that sidewalk's going to last 20 years. If they mix it themselves by bag, it's only going to last 10 years. It's still their responsibility, right?
Correct.
So I wouldn't want to put an extra expense on someone in order to get permitted in order to fix the sidewalk if that's all we're trying to accomplish. and I understand it'll last longer, and I could see if the city were putting sidewalks in, they would want them to last as long as they possibly could and be the best product that they could put out there. But if a homeowner is the one responsible for it, it just seems like that is just going to bump your cost up.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
David?
Sorry, dude.
Well, that's the whole point. I mean, if you're going to be, I think one of the things that we're struggling with, and I totally get it, from that comment and Mike's comment, is the cost and the burden on the homeowner and so forth, and I understand. But if you don't set some standard, then you're going to just basically get somebody going to Home Depot, throwing a couple of bags together, and putting down a sidewalk just to comply with the standard, and then it's going to break apart and could actually be a hazard just a year or two down the road. It's not like that. So to the extent that they have a concrete company who's reputable and competent and who can mix that, and there are small mixers
Okay,
to mix
that's what I
those
was gonna
mix.
ask. We're not talking-
Yeah, they're not typical, but you
They're
can. Then
The small ones?
then yeah, then it's possible. But I still agree with Paul that a standard needs to be set, and otherwise you're going to be a bunch of concrete that's just breaking apart a year or two down the road. Now you're back in there. I want to make a couple other quick comments. Is that I've noted that in Cassie and Paul's research that there are 299 properties that they identified, which is very cool. And in the categories of 1 and 2, which are the worst, there are 54 properties, which is about 18% of the overall properties. And I'm going to call classification 3 on the edge. Maybe there's quite a few of those that should be in 2, but that's okay. I get it. Let's just say that there's 25% of the properties, a quarter of the properties, that need some work, right? Well, that's meaningful. And as far as the notices and all that goes, and the burden, and Mike is quite rightful to point out some people cannot afford that. There's trees and so forth. There are going to be these kind of difficult hurdles no matter what. And here's my rebuttal. If you went to sell the property, you would not be telling your realtor, by the way, I have this big cracked concrete walkway out in front of my property with a tree that's poking through it, so let's discount the property. There are just things that are required, if you want to try to maximize your asset value and walkability. And walkability is a really, really important thing. And I'm going to shut up here in just a second. But the whole sidewalk issue is really about the walkability and the asset, one of the key assets we have in this town. It's an important issue, and it's a danger and it's a liability for all these people that are walking down the street. So we have to take this very seriously, and I commend Paul and Cassie for spending the time and the competence to do this. So there will be casualties of war. There's no question about that. But unfortunately, we cannot guide our decision based on a few of those to be able to do what's right for the city and what's right to protect the liability.
Okay. Scott?
Yes, I'd like to get back to the timeline on enforcement. Are you prioritizing groups 1 and 2? And the other question is on the days, because I'm a little confused because the ordinance says 180 days, but then you're proposing 365.
No, we
and then
already-
you mentioned the 90. And so what would be the...
The ordinance says 90 days. We did bring up our suggestion of 365 days to City Council, and they gave us the approval to go ahead with that. Part of our reasoning for that is well, I guess our whole reasoning for that is both given the cost and the lack of enforcement up to this point, it did seem potentially overly harsh to go to someone and say, you have 3 months to fix your sidewalk or we're putting a lien on your property. So we're giving them 15 months to do that now before we get to that point, to try and give people as much leeway as possible to remedy the situation.
15 months.
Because 12 months, the year is what we're giving them, and then the 90 days after that. What I was going to say additionally on the concrete specification, one thing to remember is that the places where concrete sidewalks are required are only outside of the historic district. So those are the only places where those specifications would really, for the concrete mix, would come into play. Concrete sidewalk, unless it's aggregate, is not allowed inside the historic district unless HDC allows it. And the majority of our current sidewalks that exist are in the historic district. So I don't know if that gives anyone more relief, less relief about the potential cost of the mix that Paul is proposing. I just wanted to state that the majority of our homeowners especially would not be putting concrete sidewalks in. They could do aggregate potentially, or the imprinted concrete. Otherwise, they're going to be doing limestone slabs.
But, I'm sorry.
Just one thing real quick, just real quick. On the written notice for repair, page 3 of 3, number B, do we need to put in code about the 1 year?
Oh, there's the 180 days.
Yeah, on B, where it says the 180 days, then they can ask for a 90-day extension on top of that, which I'm great with the 1 year, but do we need to put in the code that there's a 1 year grace period, because that needs to be actually black and white?
I don't know if we want to put that in. I mean, we can if we want to add that to code. This was a suggestion Paul and I came up with to do before going to this process this one time. We weren't suggesting it as a permanent solution to City Council, but if you all would like to see that in code, we can do that.
I think I really want to take in consideration the homeowners that aren't that struggle. I just think that the way you've got it to give them a 1 year to get it, and after 180 days to do all that, this process, I just didn't know if it needed to be code, but I fully support that, and I would support that. Is that moving on to the City Council with those parameters of the written notice?
I find that the timeline is very generous. In fact, extremely generous. That what I'm afraid of is that it's just going to fall through the cracks.
I understand. I would like to remind you, though, that City Council did already approve that timeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
So looking at Fergie's email, are there any type of grants for historic neighborhoods for sidewalks?
I'm not sure. I do think it would possibly be a good idea for me to talk to my contacts in the state and see if they know of anything, particularly for historic neighborhoods. I believe, and Paul, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe RDOT might do some grants for sidewalks, but I don't know any more of the details than that. I don't know if it's a matching grant. I don't know what their specifications are. I don't know if it has to be along a state highway. Could be worth looking into, but it also might not work for our situation.
Okay.
If-
Susan,
I just have a question about Highway 62. So I know we've got some sidewalks that have been put in, but I know this table has talked about sidewalks on 62 for quite a number of years, especially the little footpaths that are running along each side of Highway 62. How should I put this? I know there have been different grants that have been out there for like walking trails and things like that for parks. Is that is something like that, would something like that be, something like that would be an improvement over what we have now in many places on Highway 62. Would the requirement be less of, say, the highway, RDOT to put in a walking trail as opposed to a sidewalk? And would that be more economical just for safety reasons?
If you look in our in our letter to the mayor, you will see that 62 is a major priority to us. However, we're only discussing sidewalk repairs that are existing, and that sidewalk there would come from Public Works. And
Well, the big issue on 62, as in other places, is we cannot make property owners put in a sidewalk. So like we can't go to someone who owns, like we can't go to McDonald's and force them to put in a sidewalk there. The attorney was very clear about that at City Council, that we can't do that.
I mean, but we have out by Public Works where there is no sidewalk. That whole front, in front of Public Works, there's nothing there. And that's, I know there's, if I'm correct, I know there's been at least one person hit out there in that now. You know, I don't know what the circumstances were, and I don't want to get into that, but I know there was at least one person hit out there within the last probably 10 years, at least since we've lived here. Public Works, I mean, that's owned by the city. So wouldn't that be a priority out on 62?
I can't speak for Public Works. I can also say that, you know, even if they put a sidewalk, and this is the other issue, even if Public Works puts a sidewalk right in front of them, it then doesn't connect to anything.
I mean, I understand that too, but I'm just saying there are so many footpaths out there on the side of 62 that it just seems like the city should do what they can do on properties that they own, even if it's just a trail, even if it's just a wide mulch trail, but there's nothing there. So I didn't know if that had been discussed or not within the city itself, but
Susan, yeah, but we can only discuss this. And
I
that's
understand,
the
but
historic
62
district.
is mentioned, and we've got public city land or city-owned property on 62 as well that doesn't have anything.
The statement of Cassie and Paul in their report to the mayor, it's just glaring, which is obvious, that the lack of sidewalks on Highway 62 is a major concern, and the access streets to downtown, East Mountain, Pivot Rock, and so forth, but particularly on 62. This, in my opinion, is something that is a part of our vision plan.
I was going to say that too.
Yeah, it is a part of the vision plan, and my humble opinion is that that should be isolated and detailed as something that we try to dovetail and match up under a grant program that might be available through either RDOT or another public source. I mean, specifically, one of the parts of the vision plan, and by the way, this has been alluded to in other vision plans of the city. This is not some new idea. You know that. Is that walkability has become more important in communities everywhere. It's a much more efficient way to handle your infrastructure and growth and all that stuff, rather than annex and build infrastructure out. Let's take what we've got and try to figure out ways to make it more walkable and transportable. So I would think that as a part of our vision plan that we would encourage the city to, at the very least, engage preliminarily some kind of rough design and budgeting to put in sidewalks and area to start to tie in some of these motel districts, which otherwise are just going to become more and more rogue. And so I think that's an important thing. Of course, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources as a city, but we don't know how that doesn't match up, you know, with somebody who's in the grant. We don't even know. I don't even know we've asked the question. So I think it should be a proactive effort. But I take away from Cassie and Paul's memorandum that the lack of sidewalks on Highway 62 is a major concern, along with the major access streets of Eureka Springs and Pivot Rock. That is a part of the vision plan.
Yeah, I would like some clarification here because, you know, we're talking about the existing sidewalks. You know, sidewalks were initially put in by the city. They were public property at one point, and then they were turned relinquished to the property owner. And then, that becomes the responsibility of the property owner. If I remember correctly, there was a council member that brought up that, well, he would like to see sidewalks on East Mountain. And if you do that, and you have these proposals that says, well, if you have a sidewalk on one side, you need it on the other. For one thing, it's like, who do you bill? Is that the city putting them in? And then turn them over to the property owner and say, here's your bill for we're putting in the sidewalk. Is that what's going to happen on 62? You put in a sidewalk and then you give the bill to the property owner? Because you want to connect it all? We need to think through this.
Well, ideally, 62 would be a public project at some point, right? The other arterial streets leading into downtown, some pressure could come off of those if we made it more walkable to get down to 62 to all the way to South Main. So
totally agree, but
that's really step two. We're the planning commission. Eventually, we're going to have to tackle this as a part of the vision plan. And if you don't address the walkability and sidewalks on 62, it's a glaring problem, in my opinion. The other arterial roads, whether it's Pivot Rock or East Mountain, whatever, I think that's almost secondary. You could take some pressure off. There's always going to be people walking down those streets. But I don't know that you need to. I wouldn't die on that hill to go down those two streets, but I would on 62.
Yeah.
One of the things I notice, because I walk every morning, is there's several people that go over the curb, over their sidewalks, and park in their front yards. And a couple of them, the sidewalks are destroyed, and I'm sure that's probably why. So is there a way to do more enforcement with the police department? I know that it's their responsibility, but you're not supposed to park in your yard.
Yeah, we could also work on some of that too.
Yeah, that's...
Is it because they don't have a driveway, or is it because they just have too many cars?
One of that I know of, she straddles her sidewalk in front of her house. She does not want to walk down the street very far.
Oh.
And then there's another lady that has parking, but she crosses over in front, over the sidewalk, and straddles it and parks in front of the house. So you're not going to be able to use the sidewalk anyway. You have to walk around because the car's there.
I need to be excused.
Pardon me?
Need to be excused.
You may be excused.
See you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Try to make sure the snow doesn't get you.
I have to agree with David. There are going to be casualties. I am for the 365, whatever that is.
I agree with David that as far as some of these places that don't have sidewalks, I really think that's a separate issue from what we're doing here. From what I understand now, it would be up to the property owner to put sidewalks in, which is something we can't enforce, and anything beyond that is a much bigger discussion than what we're here for today with this ordinance. I will speak to that, though, in that we have tried to come up with some different solutions. I know with East Mountain and Pivot Rock in particular, we asked Simon, the Public Works Director, would it be possible to put in a bike lane on the shoulder? And the roads are just not wide enough to give that any proper credence. So it is definitely a concern, and if, at a separate time, whether it be this body or another one, if we can work towards solving those issues, Paul and I are all for it. And it's certainly not something we've been ignoring up till now.
So this is like a future problem concerning 62. How much of the land the state owns, because they have 62, and where would the land come from to put in the sidewalk?
I can't answer that at this time.
Yeah, that's something, a future thing, because otherwise, if you're going to put in sidewalk, you might have to, take it away from the property owner. to
Sure.
put it in.
Well, there's got to be an easement there anyway. I mean, you look at the new sidewalks they put in, they're only, what, I would say, what, 3 feet away from the curb? Where they
Depends on the property.
No, it's a very good question.
So-
The concept of there's not enough right-of-way there, established right-of-way, most likely to establish a sidewalk. There may be an effort of eminent domain, so forth and so on. Let me go back to
Or
question.
signage. There could be signs, you know,
Sure.
permanent signs.
Let me go back to the
too.
Public Works Office, and I'm not suggesting that they necessarily individually do this, but it's not uncommon in new build development in a municipality to require a sidewalk in front, and then that sidewalk may end at their property. But the concept is as future things are developed, if they ever are, then that's extended. Or at the very least, there's less required of a new entity to extend the sidewalk. So there's nothing wrong with requiring under new development and renovation that you put in a sidewalk, and it may go to nowhere. But you have to start somewhere to piece it together. And when you do that, then you've established a whole new design precedent that maybe you can go to the state. You can go to someone who's issuing grants for mobility and so forth to be able to help you finish it out.
Well, you know, I agree with that, David, you know, because like going into Berryville, or coming out of Berryville, there are sidewalks on both sides.
Sure.
On 62. I don't know whether the city built them or whether RDOT put them in when they were putting in 62. And then they just end.
Yeah, there's and Tom and I laugh all the time down in Rogers. When you go down to Rogers, there's a big big apartment complex, and the sidewalk does end. It just stops because that's where their property ends. And they put a big barricade up and a sign on there that says sidewalk ends. It's like there's a barricade there and the concrete ends. But they put a big sign up to say it ends.
Well, Eureka just screams walkability.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, I mean, it's the community. It's what it is. And so if Berryville is requiring it, right, which is quite normal and part of the modern design process, then Eureka should certainly be doing it at a minimum. So part of the asset of this city is the walkability, and I don't think we're taking all advantage of that.
To do a scenario, take Spring Street. So we have someone that needs to replace their sidewalk because the damage is being caused by a city tree.
Yeah.
Then what is the scenario with that?
Fair enough.
So each individual sidewalk is going to have to be individually looked at.
Okay.
If you have a tree that is on city property that needs to be removed, then that's something I need to bring to the mayor. And then they can make that decision on replacing that sidewalk or how they want to do on removing that tree or how we replace that.
Is that because it's a city tree, is the city responsible for replacing the sidewalk?
I'm not saying that. Everything's got to be individually analyzed, and everything has to be presented.
You know, Ann has a good point about the trees because originally, you know, the sidewalks and trees were city property, and then the sidewalks were turned over to the property owner. So does the city still retain ownership of that tree? So if the sidewalk needs to be repaired because the roots are building up, would the city pay for the tree removal? And that would help out the property owner.
So keep in mind, a lot of the sidewalks that we see, the trees are on the property side of the owner's side of the property.
Okay.
Those trees would probably have to be approved by the planning commission by BOZA to remove them. Most of those sidewalks are going to have to be approved by HDC on what material to use.
Well, you know, like on Main Street, North Main, just past the theater there, and the Crescent Hotel Park, I mean, not the Basin Park parking lot, there are trees that are uprooting the sidewalk there.
So the basin part, that's probably going to be part on the basin part because the other portion,
I think he's saying the Basin Park Hotel parking
Oh.
lot.
Yeah, on North Main, I mean, every time I walk that little stretch, I have to walk around the tree. In fact, there's one tree that was actually cut down, and there's just a stump there.
like I say, we will have to evaluate every sidewalk, every tree. We've evaluated the sidewalks, and we're going to be hitting the ones that are ones first. Keep in mind, most people may not have to replace all their sidewalks. Our goal is to help them set some type of goal of what we want to have done in the next 365 days. And our goal isn't to break somebody or, and we can show them how to maybe fix it, replace it, or whatever we got to do.
So
Susan?
but could the city assume some responsibility since they were the city was the original owner of those trees that are like those of North Main that are on the sidewalk?
We don't know the answer to that question.
That's what I was going to lead into. We've had this discussion before when we were talking about city trees and what aren't city trees. I don't think we've ever identified where specifically we have city trees, have we?
The city trees, to my knowledge, are on city property. And that is the tree city that we have.
But the conversation we've had is what we're talking about right now. Who planted that original tree?
I was told years ago that there was a document that showed where every tree was.
Right.
But yet no one has been able to provide that document. And we've got about 8 minutes left. David, you had something to say. And then we should probably decide if we need another workshop.
Okay, so what were the things
David, did
we've
you
already
have
got the
something to say?
365 days. We've got Paul's changes to the type of concrete, and I just want to clarify, it's not a big truck, it's the small mixer can be used as well.
Well, keep in mind, this is for new sidewalks and new subdivisions
For the big mixer?
for the big mixer.
Okay, so when you replace this, will that hamper somebody from repairing a 5-foot section without getting a cement truck?
It will require people who replace this concrete, they will have to have a cement truck.
Okay, and they can't do the small mixers?
They could use small mixers, it depends on what you're talking about. If he's talking about a small mixing truck, it would do that.
No, I'm talking about those mixers that are like this big and,
That you rent?
Yeah.
yeah,
For
you
home
rent
improvement
and they
project?
run those.
Well, Paul, it's my understanding that pre-mixed concrete can be ordered in small lots. You don't need like a big barrel mixer for that.
That, you're correct on some of that. The problem of it is do you want consistency and you want to have some type of established spec?
No, I mean, can't that established spec concrete be bought in smaller lots?
You could buy a 1 yard from a truck.
Right, okay. But they're going to bring the big truck on site.
That's correct.
Oh, okay,
They have smaller trucks, but I don't think their trucks around here are going to be a small truck.
So it would be very advantageous if there was we've got 2 or 3, 4 homeowners in a row to coordinate so that cement truck came the same day.
Absolutely.
Which would help the cost.
Yes. Another thing, too, is one thing I wanted you to think about tonight was that on your subdivisions, new subdivisions, you probably ought to establish that those concrete all must meet ADA and those on the whole subdivision and concrete's on both sides of the street.
Cassie, can we put that in this sidewalk ordinance for subdivisions? That would cover the planning commission without having to go in and...
Yeah, well, then if we're going to say that they need to be all ADA and have ramps, like what Scott was talking about.
On new subdivision.
Yeah, then we need to probably do another update on our application too.
If it's approved by city council.
Right.
But you need to check on, like, if they're doing repairs on existing sidewalks, where you have to bring it up to ADA compliance.
You can't make that in historic districts.
Well, I'm talking about the other areas.
Yeah, we just said that if we do new builds and stuff.
New builds, but existing,
We are exempt on that in a historic area.
But outside, I'm talking about outside the historic.
Well, that's what we were talking about. Subdivisions would be outside the historic district.
You're telling me there is no existing sidewalks outside the historic district that might need repair?
I don't believe there is.
Not that many, if any. Yeah.
Well, if there's one,
It's setting a standard. So
Yeah.
quick comment would be, and you made a comment in your memorandum to the mayor, is the triggering events would be new construction, this 365-day notice, and if they came for a permit
Correct.
for remodeling. So if we had those 3 layers of triggering, I mean, that's a pretty good thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
And then, let's say we give them 365, then they give them 180, then the city comes in and fixes it and puts a lien on the property?
Yes.
Okay.
So the city needs to, Public Works needs to plan for that. Is the reason why we gave 365 days.
Okay.
Because they're going to have to be paying for that sidewalk if they don't fix them after that area, at that time frame.
Several years ago, there was an ordinance passed where the city would contribute $25,000 a year for this very same thing, and I don't think any of that money ever got
Yeah,
spent.
that was for,
Some time ago.
it was for repairs.
There-
I know, it was when I was on city
Yeah,
council.
and that
'cause I
never
had
got spent,
discussion.
so that's just a refresh of that concept.
Okay, so do we want to have another workshop?
Can I say one thing, Ann, before I go?
Absolutely.
Keep in mind, the sidewalks will meet ADA. They're just not going to have, because most people's properties don't have a ramp that goes from the curb to their deal. So we're trying to get the sidewalks level to meet ADA to where you can have wheelchair or accessibility to all sidewalks. So don't think that we're not trying to avoid ADA.
well, when I think ADA for sidewalks, I'm thinking about at curbs.
That should belong to the city. So the city
We'll take care of
should,
that.
it shouldn't be the homeowners.
That's your opinion, Paul.
Yeah, that's my opinion.
But the burden of ADA falls on the property owner, not necessarily the city.
What's that?
The burden of ADA falls on the property owner.
On their sidewalks,
Right.
but not on curb cuts.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
So Cassie?
Sure, we can do another workshop.
Okay.
I mean, it might give everybody a chance to kind of absorb what we've
Heard
heard.
today, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what is it that we need to, what else do we need to discuss?
Well, I need to put some of this stuff together and maybe find some answers for you all, especially, and we can't vote on anything in a workshop, so there's nothing to vote right now to send back to City Council. We currently have the vision plan workshop, I believe, scheduled for February 10th prior to our meeting, so we won't want to schedule this for that day.
Is that the one that Mike asks for every month?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Would it, I mean, I guess the question is, if you made all the changes and suggestions, would it take us more than 30 minutes to discuss in a workshop? Because if it
Well,
didn't, we could do it.
if this is what we could do is we could give Cassie time to do everything she needs to do. We put it on the agenda on a meeting and we discuss it. And if we're all in sync, we vote on it.
Or we could do the workshop, we could just start 30 minutes early and have just a 30-minute discussion on sidewalks and then go right into the vision plan.
I would be in favor of that.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's what, 5 o'clock versus 4:30? I mean, because we already have it scheduled for a workshop at 5 for that first week of February anyway.
We would have to then put it on the agenda for that night in order to vote on it.
Yeah, but I mean, we could do that.
I'm good
But
with that if that's what everybody wants.
If it's, I mean, because I don't think it's going to be more than 30 minutes, do you?
Shouldn't be.
Okay.
So are we moving the workshop meeting to 4:30 instead of 5?
Well, we would do a sidewalk workshop from 4:30 till 5, and then the vision plan
Okay.
from 5 until 6, and then the meeting.
Is that a done deal?
Well, the workshop is already on the schedule,
Yeah, I
correct?
know.
vision plan one is I can put the sidewalk workshop on the
Unless,
schedule.
okay.
Okay. Workshop concluded. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Good job, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.